To show you how to do a differential fluid change, and on mine, my differential went out. I'm going to show you how to put in the whole axle if you need a whole new axle with differential. If you could subscribe to my channel, I'm going to do this in a two-part video, so it'll make things a whole lot easier and you don't have to watch 2 hours to 4 hours of all the loosening bolts and all that, so you know what you're doing. And if once I get subscribers going and anything anybody needs help with, I'll go ahead and take requests on what I get the most, and then I can show you how to do anything that you need to know how to do, and it'll help you out. So if you do subscribe, thank you for subscribing, and I'm going to show you how to do a differential fluid change and at the same time swapping out the whole rear axle. All right, let's get started. Okay, to begin, I jacked up the vehicle. I have Roxas chocks, which may not be recommended, but they've been working great. I have the Jeep in neutral right now, and I have jack stands on each side, but I wouldn't recommend putting them like I did. That's not quite safe. You need to have those clips they really need to have more grip and be turned the other way around, but I've been fine so far. And those, I put it in neutral, and then with all four wheels on, I let it roll back, which it didn't roll much at all, just a hair to lock with the rocks. I jacked it up. I didn't use a pump jack. I used the jack that come with the vehicle. That's all I have at the moment. I don't have a pump jack here, but just to show you what you can do with minimum, I used the actual jack that comes with it. It's not quite the easiest thing. It takes a little more time, but you can get the job done and save yourself a whole lot of money. So to start, I loosen, there's 4 8mm bolts that go to the drive shaft to the rear differential that's on your back axle here, if you can see. And this is a 1996 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4-wheel drive. The gear ratio is a 3.73 on 4-wheel drives. If you have a 2-wheel drive, most likely it's a 3.55. If you want to know how to check your gear ratio on any vehicle to your differential, there's a VIN number on the driver's side window on every vehicle. All you need is the last 8 digits. Call your dealership of your vehicle. They're going to ask you for the last 8 digits of your VIN number. That's, and just right there at the driver's side window, you get the last eight digits and you give it to them, and they can tell you what your gear ratio is. I got this one at a junkyard. This is a 3.73 because it's 4-wheel drive. And like I said, the 2-wheel drive will be a 3.55. There's 4 8mm bolts, 2 here, 2 on the opposite side. As you can see, I will rotate. It's in neutral, so the tires are off. And as long as both sides off the ground, you can tell. And here's the other 2. There's 2 on each side. I got them all loose. I can turn them with my hand right now, but I haven't took them off yet. As you can see, my problem, what happened with mine was my seal where my drive shaft connects to the differential broke, and it's wobbling. You hear that noise? That was the clunking sound I was hearing. And in case anybody has had the same issues, all the way from taking off at 0 miles per hour, once I take off, all the way up to about 40 miles per hour, it's like clunk, 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 real bad. So those jack stands ain't sturdy enough, but you just need to be, I recommend do not do it like that, because I can hear them move a little bit. But this makes a loud clunking noise when I jacked up both sides, put a jack stand on, started turning the wheel in neutral, and that's when this was going up and down, making that loud clunking noise. The seal right here broke and my fluid come out, and without fluid in your differential, the gears are going to get messed up because they're not lubed up. So what I'm going to show you now, let me get out from underneath here, is what you got to do. So we'll start and tell you how to change your fluid, which a lot of people need to do. It's recommended. They say, I've seen videos where they say change them every 100,000, 125,000. If you want to be honest, I change my oil every 3,000 miles on the head, and I've been doing that. I got 430 something thousand miles on a Honda Civic. It was still running when I sold it, and I changed my oil every 3,000 miles. And something I never did before was change differential fluid, but it's recommended. Or what could happen, well, my seal went out. If I would have caught that first, then I could have got a new seal for the drive shaft and I could have kept my differential. But there's 10 bolts on this one. There's a cap right here's the cap on here. So what you would need to do, it's recommended, well, my situation, I'm changing the axle out. So here's my other axle I got from the junkyard. So the way I'm gonna end up filling this one up is I'm gonna hold this where it's straight up, or, you know, even if it's on the side, like on the vehicle, you pop this cap and it tells you what quarts. You can even call the AutoZone. The dealership should be able to tell you how many quarts. This is what I got right here. Mine's a limited slip. Just regular gear oil would be fine. This was $8.99 at O'Reilly's. I always go to O'Reilly's for a lot of things. I just like O'Reilly's. I had to get my, also anytime I'm changing a whole axle, the hubs are not in here. What the hub is the hub, this is there's 4 bolts on the end of your axle. The hub goes inside here. It's got a pole on your hub that slides in this big old pole, which is your axle, and connects right here with a pin that will turn your gears in here. So when your wheels turn, or when the drive shaft turning, it will turn these gears, which will turn your hub, which is turning your wheels. Anytime you change these rear axles, go ahead, because I've seen people, they ended up messing up more rear ends or even brand new ones. And what you do is you get a seal. This is a seal. I'm gonna have to try to pry it off when we get to that. And it goes in here. If you can see, there's bearings right here, and they're real smooth. I got this from the junkyard. If you can see, they're real clean. They're still greased, like, you know, from where the oil was in here, and they got it out. It's real smooth and slick. It just turns so easy. Here's the seal, the outer part. It'll connect here, and more than likely the bearing may come out when I put the seal. But I got new seals. Let me go ahead and show you what they look like. Before I do, there's 4 bolts here. When I take my hub off, this is what the hub looks like. Well, right here's your rotor. You'll slide this off. Let me go ahead and get this slid off using one hand. Sometimes things can be a pain. It's kind of rusted a little bit. Probably could use a new rotor, you know, if you want. I'm just gonna use the same one and grease it up real good and try to clean it. This is your heat shield right here. You'll take the heat shield off. This is your hub. This is what your wheel goes on right here. This is a 5-lug, it's a Jeep, but this is your hub. This whole circle thing right here. After you take your rotor and your caliper off, this is the hub. The hub slides in with the pole. Like I said, the pole of the hub will slide in, and here's your hub. These 4 bolts will connect your hub that your wheel goes on with the actual lug nut bolts. And these are the 4 bolts that lock the hub onto your axle. So I got a new seals. I can show you them too. This is part of the seal. Anytime you change anything with seals or gaskets, they're very cheap. Always buy your seals and gaskets on everything you change, and put new fluid in it if anything requires fluid, and you'll be good to go for a long time. Here's how you change the fluid. If this was on the Jeep, like this right here sideways, that's fine too. You're not gonna take your whole axle off just to change your fluid. Make sure this right here is 1 quart. You can buy, this was $8.99 or $8.79. This is 1 quart. You can buy it in the quart or the gallon. The gallon was the same price as 2 quarts, but not the same brand. It was an off brand. It's a gallon of just regular gear oil, SAE 80W. And mine calls for the 2-wheel drive is 1.56, I believe, and the 4-wheel drive is 1.66 quarts. So it's going to take a whole one and then about 6/10 of another whole quart. So if this is off the Jeep or on the Jeep, either or your vehicle, to do a fluid change, you pop your cap off. This cap will pop off. All right, first let not jump ahead now. Leave your cap on. Just say this has all 10 bolts in it, like this one on here does. You will go ahead, say all 10 bolts are on here, and say this is on the Jeep right now, just like this, like the other one is. Let me go ahead and show you. Opposite direction, still sideways. All right, all the bolts are in. go ahead, put your oil pan under here. This is on the Jeep. Put your oil pan under the vehicle. Undo one, first undo the middle one, then go ahead and undo both sides. Either way, undo 3 bolts at the bottom, and then fluid's should start coming out. You can always, well, I wouldn't recommend this because the actual mechanic's gonna say you could bend the plate. So let me just go ahead and tell you the right way. Undo, or one of the right ways, undo the first 3 bolts. Start with the bottom, do each side. Don't lose your bolts, put them in the pan, pocket, whatever, just don't lose them. Have the oil pan under here. It's gonna start leaking gear fluid. Now, gear fluid does smell bad. It stinks. I guess, you know, try not to get on your clothes, but part of working on vehicles, you're gonna get greasy. But go ahead and change the fluid. If the fluid's not coming out reluctantly, fluently, go ahead and start undoing more bolts. And you can always clean the inside too if you want to go that far. If your vehicle's never been done, you probably won't have to do all that, but undo the first 3 bolts. If it starts straining, when it gets done, you want to change your gasket. They have a gasket cover that goes on the inside of this wheel, this differential plate. And let me show you what the new one I got on the ground is sitting like it would be on the vehicle, opposite way. But say I would undo these 3 bolts. If fluid's not coming out, go ahead and start working around it on each side like this. And then if, you know, of course, if fluid ain't coming out enough, as it's coming out, it may start pouring because you got 1.5 quarts in there or so. So you want to go ahead, you're going to work to where you got all the bolts out, or you can just go ahead and take all the bolts out. And then you could use a little flathead, just easily push on it, because you got gasket sealer on the gasket that holds it on there. If it's been on there a long time, it could be stuck on. What I recommend is using a rubber hammer, and instead of a flathead, because you could bend metal if you're not really good at it, because there's ways, if you're doing this for a long time like me. I've never changed the rear axle before. I have many other things, engine swaps. But if you're not quite mechanically inclined, but you need to save money, you're on a budget, here's a safe way. Go ahead and take your bolts out. It's real simple to take a bolt out while you're under the vehicle on jack stands that are supposed to be on right. Mine are not on safely, but I wouldn't recommend doing it the way I told you. Like I said, I got both back wheels off. The rotors are off right now. I got the 4 bolts on the drive shaft loose that connect to this U thing right here. Let me slide this up. This is what my drive shaft under the Jeep is going to connect to, this right here with the clips. Get this grass and stuff off, and my drive shaft to connect here. This is the seal on my Jeep. You see how you see how it's not wobbling like that one? You hear the noise, but that's just, there's no play. There's no play right here. This is tight, and it's old. This thing has 380,000 miles, I believe. But it's so clean inside. The gears are great. This seal right here, it's good. Probably recommended to be changed. I'm not gonna mess with it right now. It seems great. I'm gonna lube it just to be safe. My axle connect there. Okay, so as soon as you got all your bolts off, use a rubber hammer and hit right here on the side, right here on the big parts. They call these the pumpkin heads. But just hit right here. Use a rubber hammer, tap it when all the bolts are off. Hit it, you know, just hit it a little hard. See if it comes loose, a little harder. If it doesn't, then this plate is gonna come off. You know, you can always keep a hand on it. You know, go ahead or wear gloves or whatnot. Keep your hand like this while the other one's hitting on this side to get break the plate loose. Then you'll have, the gasket is $3 and some change at the AutoZone, Auto Parts. O'Reilly's was out. I went to AutoZone, they had it in stock, so I didn't have to order it. There's a gasket that's gonna go between this plate and get you some new sealer. So let me go ahead and show you, just so you know. Here's the gasket from AutoZone. It's just a gasket. Well, let's see, for anybody that may not know, let me go ahead and show you. Let's see if I can get this open. One moment. I'll work here. Sorry about the delay. You can always fast forward the video. I'm sorry if it takes longer. I'll try to edit this video if I can and speed things up. And like I said, if you subscribe to my channel, I will take I will take the most asked questions and get through them first and show you on the vehicle or whatever you need done. Just for the help of subscribers, I will do anything to show you how to do these things. And I have a reason that people need help. I can show them how to, I can show everybody how to do whatever they need done. For now, this is a fluid change if you need just to do a fluid change. And I'm also going to record a whole video on swapping out the this thing's on there child-proof or adult-proof almost. I'm gonna show you how to do a differential fluid change first, because that's way more simpler. And then for the people that need to do a whole axle swap, I'm gonna show you how to do the whole axle swap. This is my first time too, so you can learn from. Here is the gasket. It's just a little gasket. It's rubber. Slide it back in there. Here is the hub seals. You want to change seals and gaskets when they're being took apart. I got to take that hub and slide it into the axle. It's going to have a pole, and on the hub, like I showed you before, I can show you again, you have a seal on the edge of your axle like this. This is what it looks like on this 96 Jeep Cherokee. It's 4-wheel drive. It probably is a 2-wheel drive, looks the same. This seal will go on the end of the axle, as I will show you when I'm putting it on later in the video. Lube it up, of course, put some oil, just rub it on your fingers in there and around it. Get this new seal on there. Always use a rubber hammer so you don't mess anything up. If you need hammers in situations, this I'll probably use, we'll see later on the video, maybe my hand, it just depends. I don't have a rubber hammer, and also gasket sealer. So this is what I went ahead and grabbed. This right here is Form A gasket sealant. It was only a couple bucks. It's Permatex. It's you know, it's not, it's gonna work perfect. I believe it's clear. It's gonna be just fine. It's a gasket sealer. Also, so you know, this gasket sealer is, if you see, it says slow drying, non-hardening. So you don't want nothing to quite harden up, because leaks form when those harden up. So I get you a gasket sealer that's non-hardening. All right, when I take this plate off, as if it was on the vehicle, you know, you're holding it and you hammer it with the rubber hammer on the side, get the plate loose, the fluid's gonna leak out. You have all your bolts off. Then what you're gonna do, take something and scrape the old gasket and the old sealer off of the outside, the plate, put it on the ground, scrape all that off. I can show you later in the video when I get to this point. And after you have it all scraped off, the excess that's going to be stuck on here, which I'll show you later on, is then you'll put your new gasket with the sealer, put the sealer around this, which I'll show you later on. But just in case people know what to do after what I tell them this far, they can go ahead and not have to physically see it, or they can fast forward if they're just needing a fluid change. When you get to that, you scrape off the sealer, get the old gasket off of here. I don't have a grinder. I'm just going to use something to scrape it off, razor blade or whatever. I might have something else in there. You're going to put the sealer around it, and just say it's on the Jeep, the same thing. Just going to put the seal, if you were under your vehicle not doing axle swap, put the sealer around this. Then you're going to put the gasket, place it evenly on there how it's supposed to go, and you'll push it on there real smooth. You'll see later on. Put your plate back on and hold it on there with one hand, while your other hand put your one bolt on each side to get it held on, so it's even and you don't move the gasket or anything. Try to put it on easy. Line the bolt holes up with the other holes on the rest of the differential with your hand. Your other hand, put bolts in to hold it in place. Go ahead, and it's recommended so I'm not telling you anything wrong, you can put also a certain lube on bolts. I forget what it's called at this moment, and screw your bolts in. This already had some on it. It's like bolt lube, and you screw that in, and then once you get your bolts back in, there's this cap. You'll flip this cap off with a flathead screwdriver, pop it off, and you'll have a pump. With this one, because I'm not changing on the vehicle, I'm just gonna pour it in. If this is on the vehicle and you don't want to pour it in, you can get the pumps at AutoZone, O'Reilly's, wherever you prefer. You can get a little pump. It's a handheld pump. One end will go into your bottle, right here. One end will go in here and one tube will go in here, and you just squeeze it like this and it'll pump the fluid from here to there. That's a little siphoner. And so while it's on the vehicle, you can just like, you know, siphon the fluid from the bottle into there until you get whatever your court recommended is. They can tell you AutoZone or the dealership. If you want to know what your gear ratio is for your differential, the last 8 digits of the VIN number off your window shield, call the make and manufacturer dealership. Honda, call the Honda dealership. This is Jeep, I called the Chrysler Jeep dealership to make sure my ratio was right. Google didn't tell me the right thing, so I double checked with the VIN number at the dealership. Google told me this was a 3.55, even when I typed in the right stuff and just made sure I did the extra research, and Google was wrong. So Google isn't always right. But anyway, this is the cap. Once you have your, this is going to be 1.65 quarts for the 4-wheel drive 1996 Jeep Cherokee. Since this one's already off, I'm going to replace the gasket on this, put my bolts from this one that's on my Jeep into there. After I get the new gasket, I'll show you later on. I'm going to scrape it, everything on the video, show you how to do it. I'm also going to fill it up with the fluid here, which would be no different. I'm just going to pour it in the right amount. And then I'm going to, after I have all the bolts on, the new gasket and new gasket sealer. Never use your same gasket, because that'll cause leaks. It's just a very unpromising thing. Okay, seals, same way. They were a few bucks a piece. I think they were actually $4, almost $5 a piece. I had to get 2, one for this side and the other side. I'm gonna pull this one off and I'm gonna figure that out, show you on the video. Pull this seal off, put the new one on here, put my hubs for my other axle from the bad differential into this one. I'm gonna bolt these 4 bolts onto the new hub that will actually have the bolts for the wheel. So that's what the hub is, in case I didn't mention it quite well before. This one looked like it come with a track bar looking, in the front. This is what the track bar looks like in the front of the Jeep. I had to replace the track bar. I can also put another video. I changed the power steering line, the actual pressure line, and I can show you how I did that in the new one I have on here in another video. But as I said before, if you don't mind, subscribe to my channel, and any request I can show you. I'll make videos for the most requests, and I'll just make videos constantly and show you how to do whatever you need to do. But when we get further into the video, I'm gonna make this either a 2-part or a 3-part video. I'm not quite sure on how to video edit or nothing, but okay, now after the fluid, which we'll get to later on, here's what you got to do to get this axle off. I got to loosen this bolt, so I'm gonna get to loosen all the bolts and then start the part 2 video as I'm taking everything apart. You got to loosen here is a shock. It's your rear shock. It's diagonal on this Jeep. I got to undo this bolt and I'll slide this down. I won't have to undo the top one, which is right here. This is bad, by the way, but the shock's still good. It's old. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I have dogs fighting across the street. Here is, I got a coil over spring. Okay, there's a bolt right here that connects. This is the brake line where where the brake fluid runs to my caliper, where it's your brake caliper, goes on the rotor. I took the rotor off, and this is the brake line. I'm gonna have to undo that to do the whole axle swap. So there is this will be an open end wrench, a 3-sided open end wrench, which we'll get to it once I loosen it, and so I can do things faster in the video. I'll probably undo this bolt, and we'll see what I'll have to undo. I may be able to figure out something easier as I go through the video once I loosen these and tell you something different. For now, I put the rotors to the side. We're gonna take this bolt off. There's a bolt right here. See it? Right where my finger's pointing to. You see it's holding the coilover spring. So what we're gonna do is loosen those, and the coilover spring on the top, look, it may slide right on off, to be honest with you. It doesn't look like it's being held by anything. We'll find out later on. I don't see any bolts. It looks like it's just pushed up on there. And because you got this shock, which is a regular shock, and this is a spring, coilover spring, and I'll show you how we'll have to slide this right on off. It's all just bolts. We'll have to undo this. It's not exactly sure. It connects here to here. So this is just a bolt right here. We'll undo this bolt. This will slide right off, and it should be able to just be held up. So, but if you want to take the whole thing off, we can get to that. I don't think you got to do all that. It looks like it'll just slide right on up and stay up. By the way it looks, it goes to this hole and connects all the way to the other wheel. Okay, so we got that off. So far, I got the brake calipers off. I got the rotor pulled off. I'm gonna have to take my hubs out to put them in the new axle because somebody done bought the ones out of that one, but since it's been sitting outside, I'd rather just use mine because they've been put to use. They're gonna be greased up well, and not quite sure everything I'm gonna do yet to make things easier for this video for people watching and the future subscribers I will have. You also have an upper control arm and you have a lower control arm. Here's the lower, there's the upper right here. It's just a bolt right here. It looks like a star point bolt. Let me check the other side to see, to make sure. I know this bottom one is a regular bolt. No, it's a regular bolt. Let's see if we can see it. It's just a regular bolt. And so we'll go ahead and I'll get them loose. So we'll have to take the upper control arm and the lower control arm right here. This right here is connected to the axle. Under here, we're also gonna have to, right here is the emergency brake lines. I'm gonna have to loosen that, the bolts right there. You can use a socket piece to slide out the emergency lines from the holes right here that connect to the axle. After I loosen it, make sure your emergency brake is not pulled up. We'll pull them lines out as we're dropping the axle, and I gotta move everything to the new axle. So I'll have to show you all that when we get to it. And so there's the emergency lines, they run down. And it's not really a whole lot to it. It is a lot of work. And then you have some other lines here. It's mainly just a brake line, a vacuum line, and you also have the emergency brake line, which is up here. It'll be done right up here. There's a bolt right there. And then they'll be pushed out. There's clips right here. We'll pull them out later on and show you how to do that also. And always make sure your jack stands are safe. This is not what is considered safe. And there's 4 8mm bolts for the drive shaft. We'll pull out all 4, and I'm gonna lower the drive shaft down to the ground. They say mark it with tape. I'm not marking mine. I'm just gonna undo them. It's gonna clip in. We're gonna get later on, I'll show you. It's gonna fit in a certain way anyway. And I'm gonna lower it down to the ground so the drive shaft will stay connected back here to the transmission. We're just gonna unconnect it at this U point because this is always on the differential. Every one I've seen at the junkyards that wasn't my right ratio, and these are actually connected to the differential, so you don't have to worry about this. The seal on mine broke and the fluid come out, which caused it to rattle. It's clunking. So it's going, you see when I turn the wheel or the rotor, it's making a clunk, 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 clunk. It's because the seal here broke and the teeth got messed up in here because the fluid leaked out. Also, I have a leak here underneath. As you can see, the gasket's probably real old. I haven't changed the fluid in this differential. I've never done it. I recommend changing it every 70,000 miles is what I call safe, as in I change my oil every 3,000 miles. So that's what some videos will say, 100 to 130,000. I've heard different stuff. 70,000 is what I feel like would be real safe on changing your fluid every 70,000 miles. And we'll get to that when I change this. I got to put the new gasket on this axle from the junkyard, and I'm gonna go ahead and loosen all these bolts, and I'm gonna get I'm not gonna take anything out. I'll do it all on video, but I'll go ahead and loosen everything, and I'm gonna loosen also the emergency brake line, and I'll show you how I did that when I get to it, and while I'm pulling everything apart, the control arms, the shock, and everything. And as I put the hose in, we'll get to that. I'll put the hose in here, show you how to put the seal on, and to save me from having to edit a video, or from because I don't really quite know how to do all that. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen all the bolts on here, and I'll make part 2 next. And thanks again for watching my video, and I can show you many more things. If you don't mind, subscribe to my channel, and I will part 2 coming up.